Welcome to Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. What's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here, and we are here tonight to talk about I'm sorry, Andor episode 2. I sure wish there was a story underneath all these beautifully shot scenes, but maybe that's just me. So I'm gonna bring on my co-host, and we're gonna jump on in. Welcome to David Nemesis Howard.
Yeah, I'm busy retweeting the show and not paying attention. That's how excited I am about Andor. No, yes, I can't wait to talk about this show and about how our collection of tools has grown so much that next show will be featuring Disney's very own Tim, the Toolman Taylor, because that's how many tools there are in the show. We got them all. So, and this show is I'm not going to say it's bad writing. I'm just going to say that the characters are all kinds of want to slap the hell out of them. So,
Welcome, Steve Shadewing Sellers.
Hey, doing pretty well, and I will agree that there are enough tools in this episode to fit a toolbox, so I can't wait to get started talking about them.
All right, welcome to Jeff, Mr. Happy Bracy.
All right, let's keep this going. There are indeed plenty of tools in this show, but I will argue that there's one less tool than you think.
Ooh, okay.
One less tool than you think. Okay, well, y'all can wake me up before you go. Okay, so this episode and this show so far, but particularly this episode is I don't know how to say it. This feels like segments of a movie that's too long. I know it's supposed to be a certain flow from episode to episode or whatever, but this feels like a movie that was cut up. You know how you freeze Snickers bars and then you cut them up in little sections and eat them? That's what this feels like, except there's not goodness in every bite. So you have to work too hard, try to find something to care about because it throws all this stuff at you and it juxtaposes. It reminded me a lot of Prey in the sense of it's juxtaposing Prey and Moon Knight, juxtaposing all this past stuff and this present stuff. And I'm like, is this supposed to be adding depth? Am I supposed to be caring? Is this beefing up the stakes for the chase? And it also reflects a lot of my basic problems with prequels. And that is that since we know what's going to happen, and since we can't see the developed technology that we were introduced to, then they've got to do all this other lower level stuff. But there was some clever escape tactics going on in this episode. That part I did like. I did like the escape. And I always liked the Batman character, somebody who's seasoned and wise and thinks ahead and has 4 different plans and can do a bunch of different fake outs. That will always draw my interest. But that was about it for me. But anyway, let me hear you guys' overall thoughts on the episode. Start with Nims.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I hate to say it, but I was kind of bored. I mean, this show really is bringing out my toxic masculinity because I'm sitting there going, I've only seen 2 people get killed in this show so far, and that was at the very beginning. I need something. You got to give me something. I guess they killed that one girl, spoiler alert, everybody, but that was like one single blaster shot. I need some action. I need anything because I was just sitting there thinking I was watching Days. Once again, it was Days of Our Lives set in the Star Wars universe with some dude that's like puffing out his chest and doing gung ho. That old movie about the Japanese that come and take over an American automaker. Well, they're doing calisthenics beforehand and slamming on the anvil or whatever. And I was like, that was the most interesting thing in the entire show. I was like, in a high tech society, somehow their giant call to work and call to go to sleep is some dude slamming hammers down on an anvil. Meanwhile, the armor from the Mandalorian, that female Mandalorian is going, step over, fool, hold my beer, because he can't even hold a cake to her. So, yeah, I mean, the show there isn't a whole heck of a lot going on. And they're trying to build some stuff up, and I get it. But, man, we are 2 episodes in, and right now, if you weren't watching this for this show, I would have bailed on this so hard because it is boring me to tears. It really is.
Understatement. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, when you come away with from this episode thinking that all you want to do is see Skellen Skarsgård show up because he's the only remotely interesting thing in it. This
Yes.
kind of tells you that they've kind of lost their way in terms of making it interesting, in terms of preparing a story that you really care about and characters that you really care about. I mean, there are characters in this episode that, I mean, at the point, I'm just like, I don't want anything to do with you. They're not like Reva annoying, but they're annoying enough to make me not want to watch them. The main character ends up being still the most likable character just because we know who he is. Just because we know who he is and we saw him in something else. And that's really the only reason. Everybody else is like either, okay, this person exists, or please get rid of this person and get rid of them now. So yeah, and part of the problem, of course, is the same problems we talked about last time. You know, we have these flashback scenes that, you know, don't have any meaning because we have no idea what's going on because there's no dialogue that can be understood. You know, there are people going on about, Andor is from Kenari, even though nobody has any reason to know that he's from Kenari because he looks like every single other human in the Empire. I mean, and more of the same, you know, doubling down of Captain Tool and his Keystone cops, you know, running around trying to get Andor, even though they were expressly told by their chief inspector to leave the whole thing alone. So why do we even have a plot? And then, you know, all this stuff going on the planet that Andor's on, which I can't even be bothered to remember its name because it is that uninteresting and that generic Star Warsy planet. I mean, it's just the only even remotely interesting thing is, okay, yeah, you got the guy who is, you know, hammering down, you know, at the clock tower, and I'm just like, why? If his purpose is to tell time, why do you not have a droid doing this? Why do you have this guy coming up there doing this? So it's just, yeah, and so it's like there are little elements here and there that aren't too bad. I mean, I kind of like the old lady calling out Andor, you know, and catching him in his lies and all of that because the robot gave him away. Okay, that was kind of cute. But you know, by and large, it's just like, better than Kenobi, but yeah.
All right, Bracy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's better than Kenobi, because I'll say it's like Nem said, like there's action in Kenobi at least. Like you could painfully make your way through all the nonsensical parts of Kenobi and know, like, you know, even if this doesn't work within the continuity, we're going to get to see Kenobi do some cool stuff. We're going to get to see Vader do some cool stuff. Eventually, we're going to get to see, you know, clashes of lightsabers, the sort of stuff that we want to see. I'm not opposed to telling different tales within Star Wars. I'm actually quite a fan of Rogue One. I appreciate it for telling a story that didn't have to involve the Jedi and the Sith in every single freaking scene. I like that Star Wars gets away from things like that. I even have a soft spot in my heart for Solo, as kind of messed up as that production ended up being. There's still value in it for me. But when I get to this, I watched these two episodes back to back because I wasn't here last week, and I kept kind of waiting for something to happen, and this did feel more like a soap opera than anything else. Because I wasn't here last week, I just mentioned, like, you know, he basically goes into a brothel / titty bar, and you know it's on the exclusive network Disney Plus, and they don't even have the cojones to to put some strippers on the old stripper pole. We got one holo stripper, and that sort of sets the tone for things. Like, we're going to give you the grim and the gritty. It's going to be exciting. We start off with like a little altercation and a couple of murders, and then we're not going to do anything cool like that ever again. We're going to kind of mope around, and we're going to have relationship issues, and we're building to something, I guess. But yeah, and then our so-called main villain so far that we get is, man, if people want to say that Kylo Ren was a big cringy crybaby, he's got nothing on this dude. At least Kylo Ren could cut you in half. This guy sucks. Captain Tool, as we've been calling him behind the scenes. And Stellan Skarsgård, I get his entry, a guy of his gravitas and magnitude in the acting sphere. And I look at this and I go back to Werner Herzog, who we got in The Mandalorian, and he just gets so much more. I know we're introducing him, but like, how do we introduce him? We introduce him like, oh, he's going to do some walking and he's going to get into a meaningless chat on a transport. It's like, man, why are you wasting this guy's time? This guy is so valuable as an acting resource. Give him something to do. So I'm with the rest of you guys. This is pretty darn boring so far.
And be careful what you ask for when you ask for a Star Wars stripper. So.
Well, at least that was the thing that got me in Jabba's palace. There's more going on in Jabba's palace with the dancers, and like the lady with the 6 breasts, and
one of them was Mara Jade.
Yeah, like all that cool stuff is going on. Like they didn't even they couldn't even go. It like the Return of the Jedi was the most kid-friendly film, more or less, of like all the Star Wars films, and they couldn't even go there in the opening scenes of Andor. Like, come on, man.
They should have made a solo show about Mara. Everybody would have watched that.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. But anyway, so one of the secrets of the X-Files, remember I told you your brain is always subconsciously picking up things, whether you understand it or not. And really good production design people, they get that. One of the secrets of X-Files, if you never thought about it, was Scully's red hair. The background of the X-Files were always drab and dour, or sometimes when they were in the forest, there was this shocking pine and light greens that really jumped out at you. And you juxtapose that red hair of hers against all the stuff they were in. That was
they always color corrected for her hair. Always.
And that's why when Agent Reyes in Terminator 2 came on, a lot of the life just dropped out of the show, and a lot of people didn't understand why. It's because the background blends in with the actors. It becomes bland. And Scully is a visual way to stand out against the normal darkness and heaviness that the show created. So I brought that up to say what's happening psychologically here is you were seeing this beautiful scenery. I mean, absolutely beautiful scenery and beautiful shots, framed well and all this different kind of stuff. But somehow it's bland. Somehow there aren't any characters that really jump out at you besides the emo android. Somehow, as you see people interacting, even people in different uniforms, there's nothing that pops. And so it's another way visually that it just kind of dulls your senses, because you're like, can you give me something to follow? Can you give me a character that has some real presence when they show up, but they have like the Vader effect. They got the look, they got the unique sound, they got the them when they're around, anything like that.
Well, to build on that, you take that the scenes from Canary are absolutely beautiful as well, and we should care about what's going on there. And the most emotional scene in this whole episode, which I'm sure we'll get to, happens there, but we lose all the impact because everything being spoken is in gibberish. So we don't understand what these characters are feeling. We kind of know what they're feeling, but it'd be nice to hear them talking about how this event, because I don't want to spoil it yet, because I'm sure we'll get there, how this event has affected all of them, all of these kids that are there, and it's lost. It's lost.
What an incredible mistake it is to cut the audience out of all of that vital information.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is literally lost in translation.
Yeah.
So they open up with kind of continuing where the last episode left off in terms of watching the ship crash. And so we're doing another, flashback, flash sideways, this is happening at the same time, and you're supposed to put all that together in your head. And so they're going to the ship, and there's a huge chasm, and the camera stops, and you see that chasm, and it's gorgeous. That's one of the most beautiful shots I've seen in a while. And I said to myself, that's good, but do I care about anything other than its aesthetic value? Like, what's the significance here and what we're doing besides they have to go around to get to the ship? So anyway, they go around it to get to the ship, and all of the pilots come tumbling out, corpses, we think, but then, one activates, and then they go Peter Pan and the Lost Boys on them, or like Ewok level technology. I mean, they're just, all these blow darts and all these arrows, and he gets riddled with blow darts and arrows and doesn't fall until he gets like 27 in him, and ends up shooting their leader in the meantime as well. And I, I kept saying, like, to use Bracey's phrase, I kept saying, I think I'm gonna have to do the work of the show here, because I'm like, so eventually there's some type of impact or whatever. But if that was supposed to be your opening gut punch, you forgot the fact that we got to care about these characters. We got to have some type of context in terms of what they're going into. And then once I saw him get shot 3 dozen times and he's still firing, I'm like, that took me out of it a little bit. I was like, okay.
Well, not only that, they haven't told us, because we're not allowed to understand what it is these kids have and what they're doing. And, but we did see them at the beginning smearing a poison, it looked like, on the darts, right? Mm-hmm. Well, for all of us here that exist in the real world, when we see that, we know that the poison dart frog, that's highly deadly. So that's all we have to compare it to. So unless you're going to tell us something else, when we see a guy get hit by 27 of those darts and he's still firing around, it don't make no sense.
Well, here's the main problem for me. All right, blowguns are traditionally, as we know, used with poison darts to kill game. But this planet appears to have all the resources you would need to make bows and arrows. So if your poison can't take down a creature relative to like the size of a person within the first, say, 3 or 4 darts at least, then make some flipping bows and arrows and you can take them down in one shot. You've got all the resources. Like, it's a lush planet with plenty of vegetation. You've got wood, you've got fibers. Their darts are already like 12 inches long. Just make them a little bit longer and you've got arrows. I don't understand why they're not using arrows. I don't understand why they're not using spears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's but like I said, I think my personal opinion is that the real tragedy of this scene is that this leader, who obviously means something to all of these kids, gets killed.
But we don't know why.
And all of these kids are gibbering, and they're really upset. And I have to say the performances are good. Mm-hmm. But I don't know why they're upset. I don't know what she means to them. I don't know what the loss of her means to this tribe of kids. I don't know where these kids came from. I'm assuming it has something to do with that mind, but that's an assumption on my part. I mean, I'm making all sorts of assumptions.
Yeah,
and I'm guessing it might have been an Imperial mind, just based on things that were said later in the episode, because they were talking about how Cassian had killed the guy at the mining establishment, and so I'm guessing that might connect, but we don't know. We have to do the work of the show to make that connection.
Yeah, and here's what happens when we don't get that information. Like I said, I watched these episodes back to back for the show, and I'm thinking it's a Lord of the Flies situation. Like, they're so excited about the ship, like some, one kid's like, hey, like, hey, don't give it the attention. Like, well, why not? It seems like you guys crashed here. None of the adults made it, and you've had to subsist on your own as a bunch of children. And then later on in the episode, we find out, like, oh, it was a mining colony, and somehow it all got wiped out. And like, but why make me wait that long to find out? Like, I'm having to do all this guesswork, and now I'm completely wrong. This isn't an Agatha Christie murder mystery. This isn't Murder on the Orient Express. You don't have to play with the audience like that. Like, let us know. And then we can really start to empathize with the characters. As good as the acting is by these children,
I would even have bought Diego Luna as Cassian in the present, reflecting on the things going on in the past, or saying, even if it's like vaguely, just to give context. But there's no context whatsoever. It's just, okay, Marva picks up the blowgun that she finds in Cassian's room, and then it's this flashback, and there's nothing explained, nothing commented on, and no context whatsoever.
And there's the real issue. Is it's not just this one scene, but we are an hour into this series so far, and I'm trying to think, but I think we have no context, importance, or relevance for any character in the show. We don't know what they mean to the plot of the show for any of them.
That's
Not
right.
Cassian, not the Skarsgård's character, not Bit, not, you know, the only one we know their motivation is the tool bag and his sidekick, you know, so that's about it. So
Okay.
And we kind of have an
So-
idea that Cassian's trying to get off the planet because he's in trouble. Okay, fine.
yeah, but I mean, but we didn't even hear about this sister he's been searching for. So he you know, so
Now
She should have
that
been
was
a big feature in the flashbacks, and she's not.
See, now that was the thing for me, because one of the things about writing is once you establish your desire line, it has to be a through line. You have to see your main character being motivated by what you introduce as their desire, what it is that they want. And we're following them on that line, and we know that the story is progressing as they face the obstacles in terms of getting to what they want. So when you introduce this as his motivation in the first episode, and then we see all these other ancillary scenes that don't seem to really be connected to that initial motivation, at least not in an obvious way, it takes you in a whole other direction and makes you process all this information that you already know is not really relevant unless you work real hard and do the work of the show and make up your own story in your head, your own connections.
Yep.
Yeah, because he
So-
hasn't even mentioned her again since the titty bar. It's like the show forgot about her.
yeah. And the one character you think he would mention her to is the old lady who seems to be a guardian or a mother figure or something. So, you know.
Right.
So Nim's already mentioned it, but it jumped out at me. It reminded me so much of Batman Forever when we see the dude pounding on the drum, signaling the beginning of the workday, because I thought about Schumacher's Gotham City and that, because we had that scene at the circus right before the Graysons die where he's pounding on the drum. But more so than that, what that transition said to me was, I'm like, what is it I'm supposed to get from it? Like that this is a very rustic community. This is a very simplistic community that, you know, these beats and these rhythms are a part of their lives, because that would get on my nerves every day. But anyway, so like what was like the context in terms of tying into the story that we get from that whole thing, because it seemed to be like a really big deal. So there's a bit of a payoff later, I guess. But once again, it feels like we're on a side quest. If you're playing a video game, this is a side quest episode. This is not a main quest episode. So that's going on. And then we come to our first tool, Tim Tool. Okay. And he's as usual fretting over Bix. And I'm like, I don't know about y'all, but you know, sometimes when you see relationships, you know, you as soon as you see them, you're like, they're doomed. Like, why are y'all even in that relationship? Because that's not going to work out for you. At least that's what I saw. And it was never more obvious to me than here. Obviously, you know, some stuff happens, but I'm saying, I was like, dude, she's not into you. Whatever y'all had going on, it's probably a fling for her, but she is not nearly as into you as you are into her. But anyway, so they do the kissy, we'll go out, blah, blah, blah. And then he runs over to the computer she was just on and pulls up the stuff she was just looking at. And I'm like, don't you have privacy controls on your computer? But anyway, so he sees the information crawling on the screen and the description of Cassian. And so Tim Tool, once again, is freaking out after he watches the bulletin and seeing that they're going after a Canary male. And I'm like, okay, so we know, see, because when you're that much of a tool, something bad is going to happen to you. You can't have, you know, the big tool tattoo on your forehead and not, you know, anything happen. So give me your thoughts really quickly about Tim and Bix, and then we'll go into what happens after that. But just seeing them again in this scene, I was like, y'all are doomed. What'd you think, Steve?
Yeah, the first time I watched through it when it had originally come out, I really didn't make a whole lot of Tim. You know, I was just kind of like bored and just kind of watching it, and it didn't really kind of click to me what exactly he was doing. The second time I watched it, I went through here and I kind of realized, okay, he's clearly like looking really suspiciously at Cassian and Bix together. And then what does he do? He goes straight over to that station and basically snitches on Cassian. And I'm like, wow, you're a tool. I can't. At that point, it's just like my opinion of him went from I don't give a crap about you to I really don't like you, because it's like, wow, you had to go behind her back. You know that she has business things going on with this guy, and you're going to go and do this to your girlfriend without even telling her about anything that's going on, without even talking to her and saying, hey, do you know that maybe this guy is connected with some weird stuff going on in Morvala? No, nothing of that. He just goes behind her back and he snitches. I'm like, wow, you are absolutely insecure in your relationship, and it is driving you to do stupid, jealous things, and you're a tool, and I have no respect for you. So it's just like, yeah, screw this guy. But in addition to that, it's sort of like, how does he know that he's from Kenari? Once again, there are no distinguishing anything about being Kenari, because they all look human, and they all look,
I guess that's the planet of the Latinos.
Yeah, it might be, but I mean, there are plenty of Latinos. There are plenty of Latino-looking people that are Corellian or from Alderaan, like Jimmy Smits. He doesn't look that much different from Jimmy Smits.
But his people came from Kenari.
Yeah, how do you know he's from Kenari and not from Alderaan? You have no idea. I mean, so how is he putting these two together?
Unless he's like,
yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not like we're talking about Twi'leks or like the guys with the devil horns in the Megantina, or somebody with obviously identifying racial traits. This is just a dude with dark hair and like brownish skin. Okay, alert the media. It could be anybody. So it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that he would do that, unless he's deliberately doing it, even though he knows that it might not be him, just because he wants the guy out of the way, in which case he's even bigger tool than I thought. So it's like, either it's a plot hole or he's a bigger tool than he let on. So take your pick. It's ridiculous.
If you're going to do this whole Kenari thing with the Empire and all that stuff, then you got to use the line. You got to make them full on racist and say, they all look alike or something like that. So so we can truly hate them. So
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't look like they're deliberately trying to make you think that. I think they're trying to make you think, oh, okay, yeah, he kind of has some issues, but he made a mistake or something like that. But it's just like, it's so poorly done. I mean, you just end up really hating this guy because he doesn't want to face any of his issues. And instead he's kind of lasting out passively, aggressively, against the girlfriend and this guy that he doesn't like. And I'm just looking at this character and I'm saying, why should I respect you?
Right.
And I don't think this relationship's going to last. Not at all.
He's a beta male.
Also, I will point out that the whole sex scene thing, totally pointless. Did not need to be in there. It doesn't add anything. It doesn't establish anything about any of their characters. It seemed like they just put it in there just to say, hey, we have a sex scene. Watch our show. I'm like, but it's not even like Game of Thrones, because even with Game of Thrones, it's like there are plot points for some of their sex scenes. Like catching Cersei and Jaime together, being the catalyst for everything that goes wrong in Westeros in season 1. I mean, that's where, okay, that has a point. There's something that it accomplishes. What does this scene accomplish? Nothing.
Let's not get crazy. Yes, some of the Game of Thrones sex scenes have a point. Now, 85% of them, though, are just there so you can say, boo.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but at least they have some that do have some purposes.
The sex scene does have a point. She's coming over because she's feeling guilty, and she wants to kind of smooth things over. So that's legit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but that's not made clear. You have to do the work of the show to figure that out.
I don't think so. I think anybody who's been in a relationship, they've had a little bit of a tiff, and then you want to like kind of cozy up to make up. I think people who've been in relationships understand that.
Yeah. But they're also trying to say, we're a little bit more grown up, a little bit more mature, I guess. But whatever.
Well,
so
it's not like it was gratuitous.
Yeah, it's not gratuitous. It's just pointless, like much of the rest of the show.
I have my own thing that I want to add, but I will wait till my turn. So
okay, go ahead, Bracy. More thoughts on Tim the Tool and Bix?
Tim is not a tool.
Talk to me.
Tim is not a tool. He is one less tool than you all think. All right, so let's take a look at this because I have watched episode 1 and 2 back to back. Bix is very aware that Tim is far more into her than she is. And she continues this relationship knowing full well she is leading Tim on. He will do anything for me, she explicitly states. So she's not thinking this guy is like, oh, he understands. This is just kind of a thing of convenience. Like we kind of mesh, we kind of gel a little bit. Like, no, she knows Tim is absolutely dead set. At the very least, puppy love, but probably more than that as far as he's concerned. She's playing with his emotions. She knows it. He's there for whatever sort of comfort she needs, and she's taking full advantage of that. They have this business together. They have this position in their relationship. And what does she do? He doesn't know about any of her shady side business. He doesn't know. So she's keeping secrets from him. And when he starts to catch on to that, well, that's a breakdown of trust. Then you start to wonder. You start to think things. And, she's hanging out with somebody who, he's been a bit oblivious, I would say, probably because he's so dopey in love with her. But he's starting to catch on to things. He's starting to notice things, and he can see that they have a sort of a closeness. And it's there in the subtext, it's in the context, and it's in the body language between the two of them. There's been something there. And so naturally he starts getting suspicious. He starts getting jealous. The most toolish thing he did was report Cassian, but he might have done that because after reading the report, he figures like, this guy is into something bad. I don't want anything bad to happen to my girlfriend. It's jealousy for sure, but it also could be a protective instinct. So I don't see Tim as a tool. And to your point,
I think, I was going to say, I don't think it makes him less of a tool. I think it adds her to the list of tools. So we have 4 tools.
I was going to say that was not an untooly argument at all, because if you know all that, then why are you there? So that didn't.
No, I still don't say he's a tool, because I've known plenty of people like they do when they're in love, they've done the wrong things because they are hooked up with the wrong person. This is obviously
right on.
This is obviously a relationship that's not going to work. He's probably aware that she's not as into him as he is into her. But that doesn't make it right on either side. I just feel sympathy for Tim and his plight. I get it. I understand it. I wouldn't have gone necessarily squealing like that. I would approach her like a man and talk to her about it.
That's why he's a tool.
That's why we think he's a tool.
No. Like Commander Tool is a tool. Tim's not a tool. He's beta, but he's not a tool.
He's beta. That's what he is.
He's a beta tool.
He's definitely beta. But as for your point earlier, Nim, about like if you want to make the Empire racist, the weirdest thing that they're doing here is doing this whole, thing with like the actor being Latino, and if they're going to go into this sort of direction, the Empire is already racist. Other than General Thrawn, it's nothing but humans. Nothing but humans. If you want to tell like a racially charged story, see them like turning the Twi'leks into slaves, or
it's
the
in all the books,
or any of the other races out there.
It was
and
all
Twi'leks were
human
economically slave race for a while.
Yeah. That's the way you could go, because I like in the context of the Star Wars universe, I just don't see anybody really knows like, well, we're humans. We're like, what they're from where? How can you tell? I mean, we're all humans. Shoot, if your skin isn't super dark, I really can't tell us all apart. That's all there is to it.
Okay, let's review. You're way more into your girl than she is into you. When she gives you a goodbye kiss, it's one of those dismissive on the side of your cheek, catch you later kind of kisses, nothing passionate, nothing like, a lover or a connection. She's bragging on how you do anything in the world for her. She's got some side stuff going on that might be both business and or personal, and the body language is there, and your response is the tattletale. TOOL. What's that spell?
I'm sorry. All you've done really is convince me that she's a tool.
Well, put on the asbestos underwear when it's my turn, because I
will agree on Bix being a tool.
Okay, it's your turn.
It's pretty
on and flame
it's
on.
pretty tooly to use somebody like that.
I will tell you right now that I've been in a relationship as Bix. So Tim is an ex-girlfriend I used to have.
Nim is a tool, confirmed.
Who was psycho. she saw every girl that I ever talked to, including people that I had been friends with my whole life, as a potential rival, and she tried to cut one of my friends with a knife.
Oh, you
And that is
actually cut him.
yes, and that is exactly what Tim is. Tim is a psycho ex-girlfriend, except the male variety. Oh, here we go. True.
Well, I like Damon from House of the Dragon, so
Yeah.
I do great.
That was too
Um,
quick. You're not required to like main characters. What
Yep.
else? How to catch the rest of it? Some of the rest of the people. Oh, that's at least a good character art.
True. That can be true.
Oh, okay.
But that said, the thing that really gets me about this guy, you know, and it's like, I don't know that I would call him a tool in the way that I call Tim the Tool Man, Taylor the lead investigator to Commander Tool, because he's a tool in service to someone else. This guy is just a complete beta male, you know. And I will say that, I mean, he has no confidence in himself. He has no confidence in relationship. He sees everybody. That dude could be jealous of a computer screen if he thinks Biggs is looking at it too long.
We haven't seen any evidence that he sees everybody that way, though.
Well,
just Cassian so far.
But the problem is that
it's not established that way.
Her talking to him and automatically thinks that those two can't be friends. They're sleeping around behind his back. However, I understand all this, and I think it's a completely crappy move what he did to turn Cassian in because he's a beta and because he's insecure. But the part that really was just special and turned him into a complete D-bag was the fact that when Bix comes over, and it's obvious she's coming over because she's like, you know what? I've been doing this and that, and I feel like I've been neglecting you, and, you know, we need to spend some time together, and obviously you were hurt because you wanted to go out tonight, so I'm going to come over.
Mm-hmm.
But he, in his mind, doesn't trust her, is upset with her, has already turned in her friend that he thinks she's cheating on him. But when she comes over and offers him a piece of the what does he do? He hops right into bed with it and then sits there, gets up, and is staring at her while she sleeps. Talk about a creepy perv, man. And this dude doesn't tell anything the whole time.
Wow, that is Edward Cullen level bad.
Yeah. I mean, this dude he was like all fine with being aggressive, passive aggressive behind the scenes. But when he thought he could get some, he was definitely going to do it. And then he's just going to sit there while she's sleeping and stare at her. And he's stewing in his mind going,
that's what makes him beta, other than like kicking her to the curb when she says, I'm going out for errands, but he catches her having drinks. And that's all he knows. They're having drinks. They're sitting really close together, having an intimate conversation. Just like when Cassian came to the shop, what does he see? They're not talking like friends. He's all leaned up on her because he doesn't understand. They're having a very covert conversation.
Yeah.
For him, this covertness is transferring into like, we got something going on. So,
but that's when you got to go, look, before you come over here and offer me a piece of the action, we need to have a conversation
about him
about what's going on. But instead, he's doing all this. He is the guy in modern society who is sitting there saying, I'm all for women's rights and I'm this and I'm that and everything. And then he's beating women behind the scenes and sexually abusing them and everything.
Yeah.
That is who Tim is. That is who that guy is.
I'm not going to say that about Tim because we haven't seen any of that. But I will say when she came over to offer him like the get a peace offering, I'd be like, hey, I'm glad you're here because we're going to have a talk. But Tim's not like that because Tim is weak.
If you're watching your boo set up her plan Bs right in your face, you are a tool. She's already setting up who she's either with now or going to be with when she dumps you. And everybody been through that in high school when some people go through it grown and, and you're introducing them to all these people and they're already hooking up with them. Or they're planning to, they're the plan B, they're the backup. And if you got the nerve to bring your backup plan in my face, deuces. See,
I will fully admit that I was bringing my baggage into this whole relationship in a show. But man, I was looking at this and just imagining my 15-year-old self who saw this crazy ex-girlfriend who tried to cut one of her friends and then looked at me and said, hey, I can't wait till we get married so I can get you away from your family and we're going to move to Montana. I was like, hell no.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. It's like, I'm going to get you away from your family. That's what cults do.
Right. No, that's right. That's the crazy girlfriend, mean with the big eyes and all that. So Tim is an angry, nice guy. Nice on the surface. Seething, narcissistic.
Yeah, that's
seething rage. I'll give you.
That sounds pretty good right
I'll
there.
give you. I don't know if it's narcissism, seething rage, and angry, nice guy. Yes.
Yeah, not narcissism, but the angry, nice guy.
Yeah. We'll give you that one. Okay, so let's move on to another pivotal relationship in this episode, and that's Kazin and his mom, Marva, and they're having the conversation, and he's talking about this is the only slight maybe nod towards the sister thing, but he's talking about how basically he messed up, and he realized he's been compromised because things have fallen him back or whatever, and it felt for just a brief minute, and this may have no relevance, it felt for a brief minute like Peter and Aunt May. Like, Peter worked very hard before Civil War. That's a whole pod by itself. Peter worked hard before Civil War to keep his identity secret, specifically to protect his family, because remember, the reason he fights crime is because his Uncle Ben got killed. So the last thing in the world he would want to do is to do something to let his Aunt May get killed. So he tries very hard not to let the world know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So it felt to me like that kind of moment, like maybe my shenanigans are going to come back here and I've messed up, and maybe, a whole bunch of stuff. It felt like that kind of tension, just for a brief moment. Like I said, I don't know if that's relevant or not, but the other thing it made me feel like, I don't always understand these people who are trying to do things on the low, but don't know how to be covert. Like, do they have any idea of covert training or covert thinking or what that would mean? Or if there's a description on the bulletin about a male that looks like you, maybe shave your head, maybe dye your hair, maybe change your clothes, maybe do something that takes no money or very little effort, just to change your appearance. Same thing happened, remember, in Kenobi when he found out they were looking for him. I mean, it's a very easy fix to make yourself look different enough to throw off a dark-haired male, that kind of thing. And so it just made me wonder, and it kind of made me laugh, because I'm like, whenever I see people trying to be all espionage and trying to be all covert and spy versus spy and on the low and all this kind of, but you ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing. You walk around with your same face, your same clothes, in the same places, using your same voice, using your same credit shit. I'm like,
see, well, once again, I think that the problem is that I don't really understand A, why he needs to be covert, B, how covert does he need to be, C, how important is that to the story, and D, I don't even understand that this old lady is his mom. I don't know what her relationship is to him, And
then when we get when they find out who he is, they say like, oh, he's wanted for this, that, and the other. So you figure like, okay, if he's been doing some rebel type activities, if he's been involved in some sort of espionage, he should know better how to handle himself and how to get around without being, spotted. He should be the Jason Bourne kind of character that we saw in Rogue One.
That's
I don't think he has that training yet, though.
We've seen a character that knows that, and that would be Han Solo. But Han had Chewie and the Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
So at least he had, some ways to fight his way out, or, with this whole smuggling stuff or whatever. But I mean, it just, I don't know. I felt like they were trying to ratchet up the tension in that area, but they skipped over common sense. Now, I'm going to tweet this later. I meant to tweet it in response to something somebody said to me today. Superheroes do fantastical things. We have to suspend Newtonian physics. Mm-hmm. Horror movies, people do stupid things where we have to suspend common sense. In two different things. And so that's why one I like and one just makes me mad. If we're going to throw out, that you can't fly and believe that a man can fly, I can do that. If we're going to throw out that you wouldn't just get out of Dodge, as soon as people start dying, just get in your car and be like, deuces. Yeah, no. And so that's what I mean when I say Here, it's supposed to be this buildup and all this different kind of stuff, but I'm like, you're not acting like anyone. And then, later on, we'll get there in a minute, he admits to the killings and all that, but you're killing people. You're not trying to hide your face, change your voice. You're knowingly putting whoever is connected to you in danger if you know there's a target on your back. One of my favorite parts of Bourne Identity is how Jason keeps trying to tell Marie, you need to get out. You need to leave me alone. You need to get out. You need to leave me alone. I'll take you here. I'll drop you off. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. I'll give you all the cash I got. But you need to get away from me because they're coming to get me and it's not going to stop until they kill me. Because then he told her. And then she chose to get in there with him. That was so real to me because that's how somebody would react. And so that's what I mean when I say I'm not seeing that kind of thing here. So it's hard for me to take the tension seriously. He's not a genius. You don't have to be a genius revolutionary to shave your head.
The thing, I hear what Josh is saying, but like I said, it's like we're an hour in and I don't even know that he's been a thief, really. I don't.
A con artist, maybe.
Yeah, I want some more background on him. I wish that they have done some more establishment of these characters, because just the fact that, like, for instance, that all of us hate what Tim did that much tells me that there's something there. There's some good writing there, but it's like the general pacing of this plot and everything. It's like, come on, we got to get something. You got to give me some meat on these bones that I can hang on to, because right now we're 2 episodes in. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm supposed to care about whatever the story is going to end up being. So,
okay, all right, yeah, no, don't know why I'm supposed to care. Definitely. Okay, so we've already kind of touched on it, but let's hit on it a little bit again. The conversation with Bix. We talked about the body language, but let's talk about the actual thing. She's got a bio ready, which turns out to be the Skarsgård character, but she's got a bio ready, and Tim is watching all that different kind of stuff. And so when we get introduced to let me look up his name again. I believe his name is Luthen Rael. That's the Skarsgård character, and all that. Now,
fair point.
This backstory needs backstory. Yes, agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, I really liked him instantly. And I liked him instantly because he knew what he was doing, and he knew the rules. And this is what I'm talking about. He said, always set up your exit on your entrance. That's what I'm talking about. That's somebody that knows what they're doing, somebody that sees, and somebody that's been through this, somebody that knows how it has the most likelihood to play out. So I'm not saying that he should be at that level, but I'm saying he should be in that frame. That frame, at least I think so. So tell me you guys' thoughts about the scene at the bar with Kazin and Bix, not just the way they're interacting, but actually what they're talking about and this whole little business that they got going on, and just how it struck you. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear how it struck you when you watched it. Start with Bracing.
It was so unimpactful that I barely remember it. I mean, like, really, I barely remember anything other than Tim kind of glowering at them and her going like, he's coming tonight. It's going to be set up, or he's going to be there the next day. But that's just how uninteresting it was. Like, it just kind of like just passed before my eyes and on to Tim's jealousy promoting him into doing something pretty undecent. Yeah, that's all I got. I really remember almost nothing about the conversation because it was just like,
It's that much of a nothing burger to you. Okay, I got you. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction. So rather than kind of go into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Marva thing. I think you hit on something interesting with the Spider-Man thing, because I think that whole scene with him and Marva reminded me a bit of the conversation from the J. Michael Straczynski run, because that was where Aunt May figured out that Peter was Spider-Man, And I kind of with this scene with Marvin, I kind of felt like, yeah, I'm onto you. I see what it is that you've been doing, partly because of the robot, partly because of some other stuff that she found. I like that she's not stupid, and that she understands Cassian, better than he thinks, well enough that she can kind of figure out, yeah, he did something stupid and he got into trouble. And I like that he's trying to at least a certain extent keep her separate from the stuff that he's doing. I think that scene was actually a scene that worked fairly well for me. Because I kind of feel like there was like a surrogate mother thing going on. But at the same time, it's also kind of mixed with maybe him staying at her place from time to time. Like, maybe she's his landlady or something like that. And then it just became kind of a mother-son relationship. I kind of felt like that kind of worked. And that's what's missing from this scene. I don't feel like I really came away understanding what that relationship between Cassian and Bix really was, other than, well, okay, they're doing this business and they both have things that they're doing on the side, and they're both people that are kind of on the down low, kind of running their own cons, etc. And they're both secretive. Okay, great, but other than that, there wasn't a whole lot that really kind of stuck out at me, really.
Okay, Nims, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this scene, and then you take the larger context of everything that's gone wrong with Cassian this episode. Looking at all this, I mean, I got the impression from his file coming up and everything that he had gotten in some trouble in his youth and had been jailed. That's what I got, and that he had been in trouble, and that they had a record of him but it's an old picture and everything, and I just really don't get this feeling that he's really on the run. He's just kind of living this. He left Kenari, and it's kind of a name that comes with the stigma attached to it, and they left that behind for whatever reason. And I'd love to know what the reason is, but I wasn't told that. And so here he is. I don't think he's particularly competent or feels he needs to be competent in all this stuff. He's kind of a guy who is a drifter, a guy who has a lot of side hustles going on. He's a guy who's trying to make some cash, and do some things. He's the guy who knows a guy, and he's doing all this stuff. And so he's doing all this, and I don't think that he's particularly good at any of this. And so that's kind of culminates in this scene where he's in the bar, and there's not a whole lot there, like you said, but it's like he doesn't have any spycraft. He doesn't have any training. I don't think he's particularly adept at any of that, and I don't think he really understands what the importance of laying low is for whatever reason, And so, meanwhile, Tim is sitting there perving out, staring at them. I'm not going to let go of that, man. Tim is a perv. Dude is a creep.
That's not being a perv. That's jealousy.
Yeah, he's a creep. So
being a perv is looking in some lady's window while she's undressing.
I'm sure he does that too.
No,
you guys hate Tim so much.
Yeah,
I think you guys hate Tim more than Commander Tool.
Yeah.
No, Captain Tool, I hate him.
No,
I'm
I
with
can't
Jeff
say
on
that.
that one. I don't think that's pervy or creepy, but it is, beta, and you're just going to sit there and smolder and drink your drink, and then you kind of storm off and all that. And
I think Cassian is naively incompetent in all of this, which is funny because he's kind of a wannabe scoundrel, but he's naively incompetent in the whole, in this whole thing. And based on where he's going to end up, it really would be a very interesting way to see him pick up all of these skills. And you would hope that that's what the show is going to be about.
Cocky.
But we haven't gotten there yet.
If that's where the story is going, it will be interesting to see him develop along those lines. That's very true. I just wish I had more confidence that is where the story was going. Okay, next up.
Did anybody else feel like they had a past relationship, though? That's one thing I do remember getting out of the bar scene. There felt like there was an intimacy between them.
You know what? It's possible, but I've had friends, like I said, I had friends that I knew for years that I still talk to like that, who are female.
That's just the vibe I was getting.
What I can say definitively is that there's something more between them than business.
Mm-hmm.
What it is exactly, maybe we can't specifically define right now, but because when you get that upset or when you're that connected and when you're all the different kind of stuff. There's more going on underneath the surface.
What I got, my personal read on it, and this is just my read, is that the two of them have shared history. And so someone that the person that's in the relationship now feels like a third wheel, because that shared history that those two have together really is making them closer, have a closer bond than the romantic relationship right now.
Now, what you just described was Hawkeye and Black Widow. Because that's what we feel until Age of Ultron and we meet Hawkeye's secret family and all this different kind of stuff. But that whole thing, that is totally Hawkeye and Widow. And then it comes up again when he's Ronin for the brief 2 seconds on screen that he's Ronin. She comes to get him. And then when they're getting the Soul Stone and all the different kind of stuff. That's what you just described. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, to the point where I didn't even understand why we needed to give Hawkeye a family, because a Widow has extreme chemistry with Cap, but she has chemistry and history with Hawkeye. So I was like, why didn't y'all end up together? Y'all would make, but anyway. But yeah. I definitely agree with that. Okay, so now on to the subject that everybody's itching to talk about, and I'm going to let Steve go first. Let's bring up Captain Tool.
Yeah.
And their reaction to finding out, and then we also see the bartender walking in and he gives that little smirk or whatever, but we see, that they found him and they have that conversation. So what's your reaction to Captain Tool, Steve? I know you got a mouthful to say.
Well, it's not just Captain Tool. It turns out that not only is this guy continuing to go after Cassian against the orders of the chief inspector, who was who had read the situation perfectly the first time and told him to drop it. This guy's continuing to push this whole thing with Cassian behind his back because the company. How dare you kill agents of the company? And nobody's even questioning that he's doing this or why he's doing this. I don't know why the chief inspector wouldn't have made it clear that, we're not going to have anything to do with this. Why it's just that he told him and just let him go off and do his own thing and just trust him to do this. I don't understand why nobody's even asking, hey, the circumstances behind, Cassian killing these two guys is really suspicious. And, oh, yeah, the guy that was killed has a record of harassing people and causing all these problems. Of being a tool. Yes.
I just figured something out real quick. I got to make this comment. I just realized why I can't stand Captain Tool so much. He's Barney Fife.
He is. He is.
My goodness.
He's ineffectual. He's completely ineffectual, and he's trying to prove, how loyal he is and what a stickler to the rule he is. But as I keep saying, he's lawful stupid in D&D terms. He's a lawful neutral to takes it to a stupid extreme, and it makes no sense. And not only is he, putting the chief inspector's reputation and all this at risk, because he's doing this, he is also putting the entire colonies at risk from the Empire, because it's going to call attention to the fact they're corrupt. And and this guy has a blind spot. Like, okay, killing rent-a-cops is bad, but yeah, so is police corruption. What have you done about police corruption? And you're putting all these resources into capturing Cassian when you have how many other crimes probably going on, and including murders that you're not addressing because, you're a stickler for this particular rule. And then we get the arrival of Captain Tool Jr., Linus Vosk, who thinks he is Samwise Gamgee crossed with a British sergeant major. And he's like, yep, sure, right. Yeah, we have to go after this guy even more. And he's even more militant than Captain Tool. I mean, and on top of that, like, he shows off how weak Captain Tool is compared to Captain Tool Jr., particularly in the point where they make this speech, and the speech is so cringy and stupid, and it's just like, this inspires nobody. Like, why is everybody going along with this? Why is nobody questioning what's going on at all? These people are just obeying orders because that's what they think Captain Tool wants, and that's what they think his orders are. And it's just like, how everybody in here is just a bunch of blind tools that are just following orders heedlessly. And this seems to be the way these people operate. No wonder the cops in Morlana are hated. It just they're a completely ridiculous organization, and you have only like one person who's competent, and that's the chief inspector who decided to take a work vacation, to go talk to the Empire. And that's basically I just anything to do with these characters, I just can't stand them. It's just ridiculous. And on top of that, the whole Canary thing, yeah, how do you know it's this guy? Oh, yeah, you find this thing that the guy left him. How do you know it's this guy? Oh, he's from this other planet. Well, how do you know that the guy's from Canary instead of from that other planet? You only have the word of this lady that was in the bar. It's just, I mean, everything is just like arranged just to get them where they want to go, and none of these characters are even remotely likable. And it's like, it is possible to come up with hero antagonists, going after a character like Andor, but it's just these guys are so incompetent. They are so lawful stupid that it's just, you can't respect any of them.
Okay, the old commercial with a name like Smuckers, it has to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when Steve doesn't like you, you have to be lame. Okay, Bracy, let's hear your thoughts on Captain Tool and Captain Tool Jr. and the Tool Brigade.
I actually like Captain Tool Jr. a great deal more than I'd like Captain Tool. At least like that, this guy is he's so dyed-in-the-wool militant. I can actually understand where he's coming from, even though he's obviously a sucky person. I feel like his motivations are pure. He's this guy looking for order, and he's the one of these guys who's a stickler for the rules. He will follow this to the letter. He sees the world around him, I'm guessing, as chaos, and we are here to enforce order, and we will enforce order with force, righteous force. Captain Tool, however,
I have a counterpoint to that, but I will wait till it's my turn. So
okay, Captain Tool, however, he is. I keep feeling like he is really trying to climb. That he's, like you said, he's the Barney Fife. He is enforcing these rules because he has this inflated need to not necessarily keep order, but to impose his will upon others, and the rules have become the rules have become his way of doing so. That he gets a certain satisfaction. We see how much satisfaction he gets out of ordering those around who are beneath him, to the point where like it makes you wonder, like, how did he even get in this position? But he like either was the supreme ass kisser, or he was so anal about enforcing every rule, every code, everything that they couldn't help but promote him just because his record was so good on all of that. He kind of reminds me of a similar character out of the show Red Dwarf, who ended up getting killed and becoming a hologram. He's that guy.
He's the assistant warden from Aliens 3, but a bit smarter.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's totally that guy. I mean, like he's all about it because he's a small man, and he's a small man, and this authority gives him something that he would lack because he's small on the inside, he's small on the outside. There's nothing imposing about him at all. I think a determined 12-year-old could probably kick his butt.
It's one of the things when we were in leadership course. Mm-hmm. There are two kinds of leaders. There are those who command authority and those who demand authority. He is the latter. He is the latter.
Which is why, again, I like Captain Tool Jr. so much more, because I think the casting here was brilliant if this was purposeful, because here you have this little milksup of a guy who's trying to demand authority.
What is it, Jeff, a little milksuck of a guy?
Yeah, this little milksop of a guy, and next to him has come in this British bulldog of a man who commands authority. And yeah, he's a tool too, but I can respect his toolishness a lot more than I can, I got no regard at all for Captain Tool.
I will agree with that statement.
Well, I'll also say, before I throw it to Nims, what you just described about Captain Tool's motivation for order was an Anakin to a T.
Yeah.
Everything you said about him was completely Anakin. And
I was thinking that as I was saying it, because the sub commander here, the bulldog, as I'd like to call him, the British bulldog, that's the way he sees things now. Anakin has a little bit of both of these guys in a way, in that he was also a petulant child, like Captain Tool, because the Jedi Council would not give him what he wanted. He demanded a seat on the council, and he's like, you've been telling me since I was a child, I'm the gifted one, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I am the prophesied child, and then you deny me. And so Anakin became very entitled that way. But listening to Sidious, he got the idea is like, if the Jedi aren't going to establish order, I will hang my hat on somebody who will establish order. And that's how I feel like our little British bulldog. He is all about the order. He doesn't look at it as right or wrong. He looks at it as order and chaos. That's the way I see him. But like Captain Tool, he's like the whiny version of Anakin. This guy, why aren't you doing what I tell you to do? Like, I've got authority. I can tell you what to do now. You're going to do it or I'm going to get you in trouble. And just, a total ponce. Can't stand the guy.
The whiny version of Anakin.
I'm pulling out all the British slang.
Great word. That is a great word.
Anakin is already whiny, so if you got somebody that's the whiny version of that, good Lord. All right, Nims, thoughts on Captain Tool and Captain Tool Jr.?
I agree with a lot of what has been said. I will say that these two together are dangerous.
Yes.
And I do say this is very good writing in that sense. There have been some missteps, but these two together can be very dangerous as a villain duo, because what you have is a small man who wants to feel large and a large man who wants to feel more important than he really is. And that is a very dangerous combo, because both of them can give each other what they lack inside of themselves. And so they're going to feed on each other, and that can be very dangerous. It'd be interesting to see how the writers do this. Now, we've capped, and Jeff and DT, you guys have covered Captain Tool very understand that this guy is a tool bag. He's a small man. He is a beta in his own way, and he's trying to make himself feel larger and more important, and the authority that he can't command himself through his own force of will and his own force of action. Now, Tool Jr., I agree that I have more respect for him because he seems to be competent. However, he's a tool in a much different way, and in some ways, a much different way. And I kind of relate it. Once again, I got to relate it back to my regular life. And he reminds me of a guy, when we would go out on maneuvers in the military all the time, there was a guy whose job was to come out and pick up dead animals that got killed in the course of live fire exercises and things like that. Well, this guy would come out, and he was always wearing a with the first ID patch on and a beret, and he was talking about how he was keeping the country safe, picking up the animals. And that's exactly what this dude is doing. This dude is talking about how, the corporate forces are the front lines of the empire, and they're going to preserve the empire and everything. He is a man in search of a much grander purpose than what he has. And he thinks he's much more important, or more important than the position he finds himself in currently. And those kinds of guys can be very dangerous, because they're going to end up, either getting themselves killed or somebody else killed, or causing a situation that spirals out of control. And if the Empire found out about a guy like this doing things that is going to cause unrest, like this tool bag, I think the real danger for this tool bag and Captain Tool Jr. is that somebody like a Grand Moff Tarkin finds out that you idiots with your actions have caused unrest that I got to come deal with. And you're going to find yourself in a detention cell and dead because I had to come down there. Daddy had to come out of the back room and stop watching professional wrestling to deal with your BS. So now Daddy's going to slap you around. So
there's a real fear that might happen. This is what the chief inspector is worried about, and why they didn't want him to pursue the case, because if that happened, the Empire would get wind of how bad things actually are going on Morlana, and they might send a garrison there. So that's a very, very big possibility.
Okay.
And I'll say on your
are going to cause it to happen.
I'll say on your point, Nim, like I remember, like when I first see Captain Tool, like it was like, is this going to be the bad guy of the piece? This guy sucks. But to your point, these two together, now you have authority and power to back the authority. And now because this other guy is very effective, this has become a dangerous deal when you've got one guy who's driven by ego and another guy who's driven by fanaticism. Woo! That's
Yeah, and I
bad
don't-
And then
combo.
the fanatic
don't
is
know-
fueling the ego of the egotist.
Mhm.
And I don't know
That's
where
not good
it's
either.
I don't know where it's going, obviously, but if I was writing this, I mean, these two are ripe for killing somebody, an innocent, in that town and causing a mini rebellion that the Empire has to come and put down. And
So
then
I'm
That's
on
also
GT's
possible.
side. As soon as they had that conversation, Cassian had that conversation with his mother figure, I was like, they're going to come. They're going to find her. She's going to be out.
yeah, she's gonna get beat. I agree with you. I could see that coming. You know, I would put money on that probably happening. So
Okay, now you brought up some interesting points that I was thinking about while we were talking about this, and kind of three larger points I want to make before we move forward to the Keystone Cop chase. And that is this. Number one, the problem with the Empire, the problem with any regime like that is the same problem with the Matrix, which is free will. People that believe in order and structure somehow don't understand how the human soul works, because you can't get rid of free will. Free will is always the issue. But
well, I mean, it's cliche, but it always goes back to that line from Leia in Star Wars, where the more you clench your fists, you know, the more systems will slip through your fingers. You know, it's the way it works.
right, there's that. But also what Captain Toole and the Lost Two Brigade said to me, there's some other interesting elements and dynamics there. Number one, if you're the emperor, if you're an emperor-like figure, you have a double-edged sword with someone that completely sells out to your idea. If they sell out to your idea because Palpatine said the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. If you have someone that buys into that wholesale, what are you going to do if their idea of safe and secure isn't the same as yours? Because now they're just as fanatical as you are. They're just as radical as you. And somehow, maybe you didn't think that, like Captain Toole is doing, they would think to act on something that they believe in just as strongly as you selling what you sold. And that's the part that always amazes me about anything dictatorial. Because when you think you can control people, and when you don't understand the Frankenstein monsters that you create, if you believe in order at any cost, what you mean is your order. So what are you going to do if someone believes in order at any cost, but they mean their order, and they're just as passionate, just as believing, just as fanatical, just as radical, just as determined as you? So what you just said about how a rebellion within the order structure can spring right on up, just like a rebellion within a rebellion. And I always find that to be interesting, because people that seem to have that mindset understand life and people the least, because they think they can just genocide away their enemies. You can't genocide away free will, though. Anybody that's left, that's bought into what you're saying, somebody's going to rise up and say, you know what, old man, you're right, but I got some better ideas than you. You're right, but I'm more right. What are you going to do then? And so that's what always amazes me about these kinds of things. You're expecting this wholesale buyout. I'm a professional educator, anybody that's a teacher knows you're not going to get everybody in class. You're lucky if you get a high percentage. You got 30 kids. All 30 of them kids ain't going to be on board with everything that you're doing. So it amazes me how they think this kind of thing can happen and why they're surprised. Do you want conformist thought? Do you want people that just do what they're told? Or is there room for individual thought? Or can the emperor have individual thought and Vader have individual thought, but the rest of y'all got to do what you're told? Then you should have stuck with the clones. So all of these inherent problems, I guess, are as plain as day to me. So it always just makes me kind of laugh when these huge dictatorial thinkers and regimes can't anticipate these things happening, because they're going to happen. If you see it all the time, and I don't want to get into politics, but you see it all the time with any type of political movement, is that you go so hard to demonize people that are against your platform, And then you are surprised that people take these extreme actions against the people you have demonized. What do you think they was going to do? So that's what this feels like to me.
Well, it's basic human psychology, and it's like I kind of hope that they do this well, because you see this on all levels, no matter how small or big. I mean, you see it even within the military and a squad. I mean, you can order everybody to do everything, but you never get loyalty. Um, for all you viewers out there, one of the things that we have to memorize at West Point is this thing called Schofield's definition of discipline. Go look it up sometime and read it. It's not real long. It's about 4 paragraphs long. But the beginning part goes, the discipline which makes the soldiers of a free country reliable in battle is not to be gained by harsh or tyrannical treatment. That's the opening line. And it just goes from there. And that's basically what you're talking about here. It's like, so, it's commanding loyalty, commanding respect instead of demanding it. And it goes for everything. It's not just military. It's the same thing with the teacher. It's like, try and go into a class full of college-age students or teenage students and tell them they have to listen to you. The last thing they're going to do, is listen to you. So,
Any man who must say he is the king is no true king.
Yeah. So.
No, they're going to laugh you out of the room for real.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I guess that's what I mean when I say, when I look at Captain Toole and Captain Toole Jr. and the Toole Brigade, I'm like, I don't know. It just feels like that kind of stuff is inevitable. You got passionate, fanatical, crazy people who are sold out to this idea and ordered any cost, but they need their order. And we can't allow any kind of disrespect. We can't allow anybody to slip through the cracks. We have to have such a strong arm and such a strong front that this little upstart who had the nerve to kill 2 officers has to be hunted down, and he's got to pay. And I don't want to hear anything to the contrary. That kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I said, it just doesn't surprise me that Captain Toole would be as on the edge as he is.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And I definitely agree with the big man who's small and the small man who wants to be big. Never any shorter to those, that kind of thing either. We've seen that since junior high school. When people get, it's the Lord of the Flies thing, people get a little bit of power, and some people just lose their minds. They just absolutely lose their minds. And then some people just get so jealous. So, but anyway, okay. So as this episode plays out, now I have a totally different take on the kids and the ship. I understood Naru or Nardu, however you properly say it, and Prey. I understood what she felt like she had to prove, even though she really didn't have to. I felt like she felt that she did. And I understood the hierarchy, and I understood the standards and expectations of the Comanche tribe that we met. So I kind of understood this, how the social dynamics unfolded as the movie went on. But these kids, I don't think they had any business going over to that ship in the first place. Now, I might be the only one who feels that way, but I'm looking at this whole thing and I'm like, if you guys are real survivors, you ought to know better than that. Once again, it was a situation where the show was asking us to buy something that didn't make a lot of sense to me, because if you are used to something like this, then everything about your approach was wrong. Sitting one person out there on point, you had them flanked and all that different kind of stuff, but you had weapons that obviously were ineffective. And have you never seen blasters? If that was your first time seeing blasters, maybe I could cut you some of that slack, but tiptoeing over to the dead bodies to see if it's awake, you don't have a backup plan if they aren't dead. Is that what you do to predators on your planet? You do that to your version of lions or your version of elephants? Is that what you do? That kind of thing. So everything about the way they did that just felt just really, I don't know, like they should have been smarter than that, just from experience. You know what I'm saying? So that just may be my take, but I felt like y'all could have done better than that. You should have done better than that than to come up on a ship that's crash landed on your planet because you don't know anything about it or its inhabitants. That's along the same lines as Kane sticking his face in an alien egg. Yeah, really, dude, really? What you gonna do if that thing comes out of a bag that you're not expecting? Is different if you're hunting prey that's indigenous to your planet because you've seen it before and you know how it behaves.
Well, that's still one of the all-time L's of movie history, right there. Is sticking your face in the alien egg. So
right. So I mean, you could have done anything. You could have thrown rocks from your position where you still had a head start if you needed to run.
Yeah.
To see what kind of response that you get. You could have sacrificed an animal, put something living to see if there's anything predatory or carnivorous around there, to see if it was any kind of trap. You could have done a whole bunch of things differently than what she did. That just felt really, I don't know. You should be smarter than that, you know. But anyway, that's just me. Let me hear your thoughts about that, and then we'll kind of close out because after that we kind of meet Skarsgård and we kind of see what's going on with him. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts about that. But let me hear your thoughts about what I just said about that whole little scene.
sure. Yeah, I would say for me, I mean, I get the idea that these kids are they're out on like a scrapping mission, you know. So you know, I get the sense that they're out there to try and collect whatever's useful to survive, and that makes sense to me. But at the same time, I agree with you. It's like you would never send out one person alone. A, that's number one. Number two, if you were going to send one person alone, you would send one of the lesser members of the group, more expendable members of the group, to go out alone. That's
Kind of
just
like a pawn on a chessboard.
yeah, that's just dynamics 101 of a you know, a party that's going out or whatever. It's like the leader's got to be able to do command and control, and they're more valuable. And you know, it sounds horrible to say, but it's true. You know, three, you would have had people backing her up, so they would have been covering her with blow darts. Number one. So the minute that guy got up, he didn't shoot right away. He would have been riddled with stuff right away. So I mean, yeah, a lot of that didn't track. And I think what they were trying to say is that Cassian might have been trying to give her cover and he failed, like he paused or whatever.
Okay.
Maybe. But you know, that's like
wasn't clear.
6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't know if that's the case. But even if it is, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because there were 10 other kids that were all looking at the same thing that could have shot as well. You know? And you would think that somebody, once she cleared the one guy, then 2 more people will come up and cover the one guy. That's how you would like advance forward. So I do agree with you. So it made sense to me that they were going out to the ship to kind of scrap it to get stuff to survive. And this was their expedition. But the way it went about it didn't make sense. And the fact that they sent the leader in by herself really didn't make any sense because that would never happen in any organization, let alone a tribal organization where she seems to be the most important part of the tribe. You know, so it's like you don't risk her, you know, you risk somebody else, you know, so probably somebody that's in the middle, you know, who is competent, you know, so you wouldn't send a Cassian because he's not competent yet. He's new. You risk somebody who's competent but expendable. So,
right. Okay, Bracy. You also said it wasn't clear, so we're doing the work of the show yet again.
Yeah, like you know, Cassian is called over to this position. We don't know why because we don't understand a flipping thing anybody's saying. But I agree with everything Nim just said. Like, and okay, I'm going to give these kids a benefit of doubt. They are kids. They are inexperienced. They're not paramilitary. But it's very clear from their environment, from what they have built, that they have been surviving on their own for a while. So you expect that they should have some, you know, hard-won wariness and survival skills about them. So even if they're not a paramilitary organization, they should know a little better. Now, I think part of the thing is they were trying to establish, like, you know, she's a brave leader, and a leader will put themselves out there if they're like that. You know, you have had leaders in history who led charges, you know, like Alexander the Great, and other people just got right up in the face of the enemy. And so there is potentially a reason for this going on here. You know, I won't have my men do anything that I won't expect them to do. But the thing that annoyed me the most about this is there's like 15 kids And the way they cut it, the way it's edited, it looks like they see the guy stirring and getting up. And he doesn't just stir. He doesn't point a blaster from the ground and take her out. He stands up and aims long arm and shoots her. And why didn't he get peppered with 26 arrows then? That made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And you're like, nobody yelled warning. Like, if you're not going to shoot, like, get down in our gibberish language, something. But no, none of that happens. That is a badly put together scene, a badly written scene, a badly edited scene, because nothing about it justifies anything that's happened. As good as some of the other things that we've seen have been, this is 180 degrees away from that.
Not only that, the dude gets up, does the long arm, like you said, and then pose for a second. He's like sitting there smiling at the camera.
They had all the time in the world to pepper this guy, to pincushion the crap out of him. There is no excuse for this scene to play out like that. It would have been much more interesting, like I said, if he kind of woke up on the ground and he had a blaster in his hand already, and he takes her out like that, or if some guy they weren't expecting pops out of the entryway, or staggers out of the jungle from an angle that they hadn't approached. Anything else but this was just a complete and total fail of a scene.
Yeah,
you're sitting there yelling, "Get down!"
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're like, "Get down! Get back to the chopper!" Yeah.
And when you're talking about all the time in the world, that made me think about anytime I see a quarterback that's got all the time in the world, and he's in the pocket, and he's waiting. But anyway, so it's like
we've seen them use like these little mouth noises, like stuff like that. It could have been something as innocuous as that to alert her, and then she would have known danger. Anything. Right. She could have ducked. She could have whirled around. Fired her blowgun because she had it at the ready. But no.
Steve, what do you think about the Lost Boys and Girls going up against an alien ship?
Yeah, it's not a well done scene at all. I mean, and yeah, I have to question why they were there to begin with. But again, because we don't know what anybody's saying, we have no idea why they're there. I mean, maybe they were there to check out the ship and make sure it wasn't a threat. In which case, why are they not sending like a small scouting party ahead and just keep the rest of the force like behind to back them up? And by that force, I mean more than one person, and certainly not the leader. Yeah, that was dumb. And then my question also is like, if you want to make sure that they're dead, and you have blow darts, why don't you shoot the bodies with the blowgun and see if they come up, or at least if they react? I mean, because then they hit, they're going to cause some pain. So you'll know if they're really dead the minute that it hits.
How Targaryen of you, Steve.
This would have been a great time to have spears, as I mentioned. You just walk by and stick people as you go.
That'll work too. Or at least hit them with the blunt end. Hit them with the butt like Carlsruhe would.
There you go.
No.
Oh God, not Carlsruhe's butt again.
But there are plenty of ways that they could have done that, and they don't do that, and it's just everything is just ridiculous. Yeah, and it's like you're gonna wait, and you see this guy drawing a weapon or this thing that you don't know what it is, and you're gonna stand there, mouths agape, not doing anything while he gets all the time in the world to line up and shoot. No, I don't buy that either. It just seems like, okay, she had to die somehow, and we're gonna set it up this way. And it's just, it's not convincing. And I imagine it would probably be less convincing if we understood what they were saying. But we'll find out.
Yeah, why didn't we just have a jungle predator that was attracted to the bodies? That would have made sense.
Yeah, or any number of other things. I mean, they had plenty of other things that they could have done to kill.
No, it definitely would have been their version of crows or ravens or vultures there much sooner than the kids got there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Joshua.
Yeah, that's right. Me too.
The other question I have for all of you guys, though, too, is there any reason why this guy is getting? I mean, they've crash landed, and he gets up and he shoots a little girl. Why?
I mean, all we have is this vague notion that the colony got wiped out for some reason.
Why not fire a warning shot if he's afraid of them?
He shoots first, and just with no question, he sees her and
shoot over your head. I mean, warn them that I've got a weapon. Run away from me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
so-
There are plenty of ways that they
So
can.
I realized I dipped into next episode a little bit because they all kind of blur together when I talked about Skarsgård's character, Luthen. But I was happy to see him there because he brings gravitas to his roles and he sells you on whatever he's selling you in Watcher 3. So I know I dipped into that a little bit. So we'll talk about that next time. But again, so this one ends with Cassian walking towards the camera and he's going to meet the buyer and time is running out and blah, 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 blah. So this was another one where it walked really up close to a door of interesting. But I think the things they want us to care about, we don't. And the things that they meant to be serious make us laugh. And still, the emo droid steals the show.
Yes.
I have to say one thing about that last scene, though, when he's walking towards the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked a little bit about music and everything. You guys, if you didn't pick up on this, go back and watch. Man, I don't know if it was just an over-enthusiastic drummer or somebody messed with the levels or whatever, but the drums came through super loud on my headphones to the point where I was like, whoa, dial it back there, Lars Ulrich. It's like, man, this went full Metallica all of a sudden. It was like the drummer was overshadowing everything. And the music, like all the other episodes, the music has been very like new agey and everything. And suddenly we had full on rock music with rock drums, and the drum level was up at 100 while the rest of the music
I thought
was
that
like
was
at level
weird
50.
too because he's walking out of the scene. He's walking towards the camera. It's the end of the show, and all this swelling, dramatic music comes up, like something really exciting is about to happen, and then the credit roll is like,
And then
what the hell is that all about?
Yeah. But like really go back and watch though. It's like the drums like I'm like, what the hell?
It's like music is to emotionally cue you for something. Like when we were talking about on the podcast when we were talking about Psycho last Friday, and we are talking about the musical cues and how they elicit emotion purposely to get something out of you. It's like, but why is this music here? Because nothing's about to happen but the credit roll. There's nothing dramatic, nothing exciting. It's not even like the cool Pulp Fiction slow-mo walk. He's just walking right at the camera in the midst of this gray area, and it shows over. Tune in next time for more exciting music with nothing else going on. I'm
glad it wasn't just me because I was watching it going, man, who paid to have their brother-in-law play drums here, and this is their like 15 minutes.
He's like, this is my shot.
Brother-in-law. That is my point about how we're eating a little Snickers bar as pieces, but we need the whole candy bar to make it make any kind of sense. And so, but anyway, so we're gonna call it there. This wasn't a total nothing burger, but this was like a half nothing burger with cheese. And so we're going to need more episodes, and that means it's not doing a good job of making us, because we're watching it because we're reviewing it. We're not watching it because we're intrigued. And by this time in the show, we should be intrigued. We should have somebody we're rooting for. We have somebody we care about. We should have standout characters. We should have all those things. And the things we look at the most are, how much of a tool are you? It's tool-o-meter show, and that's about it. But we're going to keep plugging since we started this. Now I will say that there might be a bit of Star Wars fatigue creeping in. They just announced Tales of the Jedi. Star Wars used to be, an event at movies. They came out every 2 to 4 years, and there was some space and some time. Star Wars came out in 77, Empire came out in 80, Jedi came out in 84, and everybody named Mama, we talked about Return of the Jedi for 4 years. As soon as the end credits rolled on Empire, all we talked about was originally called Revenge of the Jedi, then they changed it Return of the Jedi, and that's all we talked about. And it used to be like that. Now it's like you can't even catch your breath from the last, hastily put together TV series. It was just a big bowl of meh, and they're like, here's your next bowl of meh. It's coming right up, and I'm just like, feeling a little fatigue here, so I don't know, but maybe that's just me.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
I will say in defense of Tales of the Jedi that it looks a little bit interesting in the Ahsoka stuff and the background on Dooku. That is a character that I do think deserves a little bit more backstory than he's gotten, and I am kind of curious about it. But I have a feeling that this is stuff that Dave Filoni's involved with, and if that's the case, then you'll at least get somebody who understands George Lucas's vision for Star Wars, and that's worth checking out.
There is hope.
Yeah, that's the pivotal person involved. If it's a Filoni production, there's at least a shot of it being interesting.
I could have enjoyed this show, and I still may. I'm not saying that I won't, but I think that this show was ripe for being a loss of innocence tale about how Cassian Andor, whoever he was, becomes Cassian Andor, a rebel agent who is perfectly fine killing people. I'd watch the hell out of that show.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to see Cassian lose a lot of people in his life, to sort of justify why he joined the rebellion and why he hits the Empire.
Mm-hmm. So
why he becomes Black Ops.
We'll see.
I think it's going to start with Marva.
You got to take. Well, yeah, no, she's toast. We know that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still waiting for Bill Burr to come back, though. So
Yeah, ditto.
I would like to see more of him.
But remember,
it would actually be cool to see Bill Burr as a full-on Imperial agent striking terror here and there.
Yeah.
But remember, you gotta take the character from something to something, so you have to establish your starting point very, very clearly, very, very clearly, and that's what provides the contrast as they change over time. If you don't do that, if they're just 2 shades away, like we've all said ever since we met Hayden's Anakin, this boy was already on the dark side when we meet him in Phantom Menace. He didn't turn to no dark side. He's angry, in Attack of the Clones, he's creepy. He's disobeying Obi-Wan at every turn, just doing what he wants. I'm like, where's the turn to the dark side? So it's that kind of thing. But anyway, we're going to call it here. I want to thank my guests. Thank you so much, Nims.
No problem. Thank you. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And I'm being good. So I'm watching only one episode at a time. So it's been interesting watching it that way. So, because usually I binge the whole thing and watch ahead. So not knowing what's going to happen, I'm enjoying reviewing this a lot more that way because I'm kind of like speculating and all this other stuff. So that's been good.
Well, there's some cool scenes in the next episode. You'll like them. Thank you so much, Bracy.
Yeah, I make a policy of not watching ahead because I want to explore this as the audience experiences one episode at a time. But I will say you've got a big problem when the character that I'm most interested in is a droid who's not even the main protagonist of the show. And I got handed to the guys because I wasn't here to talk about this the first episode. That little droid for me has kind of managed to out R2. He's incredibly expressive in his body, and I love the little stutter. And him and Marva are probably the only characters so far who are not tools.
He's a Marvin the android, but a lovable Marvin the android. So,
Don't talk to me about life.
R2's not emo though, so
yeah,
you got to give him his props on that because he just spurts out his role.
A planet the size of a brain, and I'm stuck with you ignorant monkeys.
Well, he tortures the stormtroopers and sets them on fire, so emo wouldn't do that. He'd be too busy stuttering. Anyway, thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, it has been fun talking about the show. More fun than watching it has been. I will say, as far as policy watching it, I generally try to watch it, according to the episodes that we're watching. I'm a little bit ahead because I watched the first half of the series earlier when it came out. I think, next episode I think will be the last one I'll be ahead on. So after that, I'm just going to kind of watch it normally, but. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what becomes of it, and I'm particularly curious to see what they do with Stellan Skarsgård because I feel like his character has more significance than we're being led to believe right now.
I hope they give him something to do.
I can always say this. I always go back to my old faithful. I've seen Star Trek Picard. This is no Star Trek Picard.
It's not as bad as Star Trek Picard.
We do not speak his name, Jeff. We do not speak the name.
Exactly. So it's like, it's all good because it's not Star Trek Picard. So.
It's only a best show. I can look at it.
There's a new Star Wars movie that's going to be set after the events of Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, no.
Oh, joy.
Yeah, that movie didn't happen because nothing around the sequel trilogy or after happened for me.
Didn't happen. All right. That's it, folks. We will see you next time. Don't forget to check out our other content offerings on United Capes Podcast Network and Comic Crusaders Network. We have something for everybody. We got retro shows. They had horror reviews all during the month of October. We still got another week to go with that. We got artist interviews. We got creator interviews. We have done interviews for the project that Nemesis started that we're all a part of. So definitely there's much to watch. So definitely check out our other YouTube offerings. And me and this crew will see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
See you later, folks. Jesus. Sorry. Here we go.
Spoiler.